Hello, this is the first of the water series. We're going to be doing grain on a window today. Okay, so we're going to be using drawing gum today, and I think this might be the first time I'm introducing it, or not. I don't know. If it isn't, then I've maybe only used it once or twice before in a tutorial, but I use drawing gum, I don't know, maybe like 1 out of 20 paintings, so not very much, but when I do use it, it does help tremendously. So a good thing to have in your toolbox, I think, especially as you're getting started and trying to get used to the absence of color being white in watercolor, or if you're coming from the acrylic or oil world, it might make things a little bit easier, but I'll put a link to it in the bottom. But I will show you how I use it here in a bit when I get to that point. Right now I'm just sketching out a book, an open book, so it's kind of hard to see, but it's just a really light sketch. And when it comes to watercolor, you really want to go as light as possible with a pencil, because watercolor, it's not opaque like acrylic or oil, so pencil doesn't take much of a mark to show through the watercolor. So I'm just doing kind of a rough sketch, and I'll tell you right now, this is the first time I'm trying this technique in water for the windows. So I do figure some things along the way that I know I would do a little bit differently next time, and I will point those out as I do it. But this is my first time, so it comes out pretty okay. I know it can be better, but it's not that bad. One of the mistakes that I make, which I'm literally doing right now, is the way I'm sitting, and this is such an amateur mistake that I should have known better, but hey, it happens to the best of us, right? So I'm sketching out a teacup. So it's an open book. You saw it in the thumbnail. It's an open book and a teacup, and you're kind of looking out at the rain. It really kind of a nice, chill atmosphere, right? Well, I'm sitting down in my chair, and I have my paper flat on the table in front of me, and I'm sketching out this teacup, and never bother to stand up to look at it straight on to see if it's actually correct. And it's not. So this painting, if you look at it from sitting down and looking at it on the table, everything is in the correct perspective and angle. But if you stand up and look at it, my teacup is kind of misshapen, and you can see that here. It is not an even teacup, and it drives me insane because obviously I didn't see it until I was completely done with the painting, in which case it was definitely too late. So don't do what I did. Stand up, take a look at your picture, make sure that the sketch is right. But that was one of the first mistakes I've made, and that was just shouldn't have happened. So right now I'm using the drawing gum, and I'm using a glass pen, and these pens are you can use them for ink, like the ink wells and stuff. You can use it like I'm using it right now. I really like it for the drawing gum. When I first got drawing gum, I would use like an old paintbrush, and it just it stuck on the paintbrush and just got thicker and thicker, and it was impossible to use. And the glass paint pen is fantastic because when it dries, you just pull it right off. So you can use it over and over again, and you can still use this glass pen for ink if you do any kind of like lettering, or you want to use it for ink drawing or whatever. You can still use it. It doesn't damage the ink pen, or it doesn't damage the glass pen at all. So you can get a nice little point to it too. I'm drawing kind of like the raindrops on the window at this point, and the reason it's blue because that's what the drawing gum is, and then you lift it up at the end of the painting, and the idea is that no paint will go through it, so when you lift it up, it will come right off, and voila, you've got the white of the paper underneath, and you now have the white that helped. It's really helpful in things like this where you've got really thin lines and it's just really difficult to try to keep from painting over them, and it just makes life so much easier, especially like with me. I'm going to be doing blue. You just paint blue right over it. You don't have to worry about getting the lines right. So while that's drying while it's drying, I am going to do the bottom part of the painting, which is the book. Of course, do it in whatever color you want. I am doing, you know, paper. Paper is like a white. So how do you paint paper on paper? I'm just going like a little shade darker, because there's different shades of white in paper for books and paintings. So I'm just going a little bit darker. The book, the sketch, I don't go too much over sketching and drawing because that's not my expertise. My expertise is watercolor painting. So I'm sure there's some wonderful tutorials out there on how to draw books and open books and all that stuff. So this isn't really a lesson for that, but just to share with you what I did. The idea is that when you open a book, you know, it's not completely even on both sides. So the left side's a little bit thicker. Presumably you're further along in the book. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. It might once it's completed. So I'm just doing kind of a shade darker on the paper, and then I'm going to obviously darken it in the center where it folds together for the shading and stuff. But it's one of those things I'm just going to layer on, and you can probably barely see the color, but that's the trick to watercolor. You want to go so light on the watercolor, and when I say light, meaning like so much water, like watered down watercolor, because it is so much easier to add color than it is to take away. So I'm doing the crease of the book. I'm just doing kind of the shadowing at this point because I'm going to layer it on, and it is going to be, if people say, how do you do the shadowing? So shadowing can be a couple of different ways. You can take obviously a darker version of the color that you're using. In this case, that's kind of what it is. It's paper, right? So I'm doing a little bit more of a muddy look. You can even go a completely different color with the shading, and like if you have a blue cup, you can give it green shadow or green shading. It kind of has a really cool effect. Sometimes stuff, when they cast a shadow or they're shaded differently, it does have a different color to it. So, and the other way is what I tend to kind of default to 80% of the time is a very, very watered down touch of black and a touch of brown. And it's muddy. It's what it's basically going for, and that's what I'm doing here. And that's kind of my trick. I default to that. I don't know why. Because usually when I use the darker shade of the color I have, I like the way it looks better. But for some reason I default to this. So I don't know. There's no rhyme or reason to why I do it this way. It's just how I do it. In this case it makes sense because the book is white-ish, off-white. So it is a darker color of the paper. So it's a kind of the best of both worlds here. So I'm working on a cup now. Presumably the cup is like that white porcelain, and one of the ways to do that and to help with blending is to put the color down, make it really, really light, meaning again, watered down, and then taking an old dishcloth or cloth or a napkin or whatever and just picking up some of that to make it not as dark. The only thing I would say with that is be careful because certain colors stain. So I have which color is it? It's a sepia. So if I use a sepia, it's a brown for me on my watercolor. It's sepia. It's the Synchromatic Transparent Watercolor from Dr. P.H. Martin. And I love this color. I have like 5 bottles because I go through it so much. But the only caveat to this color is that it does stain, and it stains like a weirdish greenish orange color, which is not the color I ever want that I'm going for. So whenever I'm doing something and I know I'm going to lift this color up, I really do avoid the sepia paint because I know it's going to stain. So one of the benefits to using the same kind of paints or same colors all the time is you get to know them pretty well. And you know things like that, so then you don't learn the hard way. So, and I always keep Q-tips, and you can see, so I'm using my sepia here, and you can see when I lifted it, it stained. It didn't lift as much as I wanted to, but I wasn't going for a complete lift, so I'm totally fine with that. And what was I saying? I was saying something, but anyways, I don't remember what I was saying, but anyways, I'm painting this cup, and now I'm just doing kind of layers upon layers. It's a white cup, presumably is a white cup, and this is the shadows from It's a Rainy Day, so you've got It's a Darker Room, that sort of thing. I'm going to add I think it's going to be like a cappuccino I'm making. Basically, it's going to be like a foamy with some cinnamon. That sounds so good right now. It's late though. But yeah, that sounds really good. Anyway, so as you can see, I have some absence of color here, and that's going to be like the white of the cup. I do have the drawing gum kind of going further into the cup than I wanted it to, which I'm okay with, because once I lift up the drawing gum, I will go ahead and fill that color in that it's missing from the cup, and then we'll be fine. It's not a big deal. So one of the things that I'm doing now is just going to keep layering on the shadows, and then once I'm done there, I'm going to go in and I'm going to add the blue to the window for the rain. And I took such an obscenely long amount of time on this coffee mug, and it's awful because it's not shaped right, and now I'm just staring at my coffee mug like, oh, it's such an easy fix. I could have fixed it so easily when I was in the middle of the painting if I had just stood up one time. So word to the wise, take a break from your painting, and if you sketch, take a break from the sketch when you're done with it and come back and see what you can fix. Don't make the mistake I made, because it's irritating, and not really happy with it. So I'm just going to keep filling in this mug. Oh, so this is the first part of the water series. I'm speeding through it a little bit because it gets tedious. Like I said, obscenely amount of time I'm working on this mug. So the water series I'm going to be doing, this first one is obviously a rainy window. The next one I'm going to be doing is fog. And I did do a tutorial on fog before, but I'm going to do another one. And that one was a popular one. People liked it, but I'm going to do another one because I feel like fog is one of those that you can never get too many tutorials of that. So I'm going to do fog next. And then I think, what was the one after that? There was fog. I think I'll probably do like a lake or an ocean or something like that. So it's going to be the water series. So there's fog, there's rain. Oh, snow. So it was going to be the rainy window, and then I'm going to do the fog next, and then I'm going to do snow. I might combine 2 in 1 and do fog and snow together. Most likely we'll do that, and then I'll probably do another rainy scene, but it won't be rain against the window. It'll be rain like outside, so it'll be a different effect. And then I'll probably do an ocean, like the waves, so you can see crashing waves. It's really easy to do with watercolor and really fun. And then a lake or a river. So it's going to be like 2 bodies of water, either an ocean and a river, or ocean and a lake. I'm not really sure, but that's kind of where we're going. I'm going to be doing the water series. I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing them back to back. I'm probably going to squeeze in one Valentine tutorial in there or something else. Just so it doesn't get tedious, especially for those who are like, I'm kind of tired of all this water stuff. But it'll be close to back to back. So if I throw a video in the middle there somewhere, it's not that I went off track. It's just because I'm doing a different video for the time being. And like I said, obscenely amount of time on this coffee mug, and it's just driving me insane. But you know, it's funny because it's white. You would think it wouldn't take that long, but it does, because you just have to be really careful with the layers you're adding on it. And I promise you, when I was sitting there looking at this thing from my angle, this was perfectly shaped. And I was actually really proud of it, which is probably why I'm spending so much time on this stupid cup, because I was like, oh my god, look, it came out so good. I freehand drew it, and then I stood up, and I'm like, yeah, didn't do that so much. So anyways, and this is kind of a really good, if you're really struggling with some shadow work, this can help with the light layers and stuff, and you know, saucers and everything. And it's just, you know, don't obviously do what I did with the drawing, but the shadow work I'm really happy with. And it's just, there's such a layer upon layer upon layer. And I'm using a mop brush for this because mop brushes for me, they blend really well. So if you're doing something like this, I would recommend a mop brush over anything else. Here I am adding the cinnamon and the cappuccino. And again, it sounds so good. What is your coffee drinker choice? Do you even drink coffee? Are you a tea drinker? Is this even your scene, which you'd be drinking coffee and reading a book and looking at the rain? Totally something I would do. This is just right up my alley. I love rainy days. I live in Phoenix, so we don't get too many of them. I could never live in a rainy place because if it rains here for more than a day, I'm over it. So, which rarely happens. Definitely meant to be in the summer, in the heat, in the sun. So, and this is that sepia color I was talking about, and I lifted it and see how it's more of an orangish color. In order to blend really well, you need to keep your paper wet, you need to keep the paint really wet, and work pretty quickly. So that's why I'm working pretty fast here with the shadowing. I don't want it to be blotchy, and I'm just trying to really work on the blending and getting it all together. It was kind of tough because I'm trying to, obviously, it's a white book and a white mug, and looks like my table's kind of on the lighter side. So, but at the same time, I was really wanting the focus to be on the rainy window. So I'm totally okay with that. If you want to do a different color mug, if you want to make it fun and put some words on it, by all means, go ahead. So I'm just adding some of the coloring to the table. It's such a boring table and mug and book right now, but that's kind of watercolor. Takes a little patience when you get to this point and you're looking at it, you're like, this does not look good, it's boring. It's because you're laying your foundation down. It's like building a house. The foundation part, they all look the same. You're like, I don't know what this is. We have no idea what this house is going to look like. And then the house starts going up. You're like, oh, it's nice now. We put the layers in. Foundation's not so much, but absolutely necessary to the good structure of it, right? And I promise you, we are getting very close to actually painting the window now. And now that the book is dry, I'm going in and I'm adding that crease. And then I'm going to add a little bit more of the shadow here. And I do, because I know people really they ask a lot about the shadowing and the shading and blending and all that stuff. That's the reason why I spent so much time with this here, is I just wanted to help with that a little bit. I don't focus so much on it towards the end of the video. I do skip through quite a bit of the tedious stuff. So this is going to be the most of it here. And I don't know. I think this is more of a textbook looking thing than an actual book you'd be reading. But hey, maybe you're there for school, you're studying, doing your thing. And I'm just shaping the book, trying to bring it together. Also, the drawing gum is not quite dry yet, so I was just also doing as much as I could until the drawing gum was complete. And then we will go through and we're going to be doing, so with the rain, we're going to be doing like a blue. You could probably do even like grays and blues. I think I do like blues and aquas. So one of the things that I said I could do differently is I didn't go as dark as I could have with the rain. I think I probably would have put more distortion, more colors, more reflection on the window in hindsight, but also at the same time I didn't want to push it because this is my first time trying this technique, so I didn't want to ruin it. Back to the mug. So this is the, like when the mug meets the saucer, it's going to have a little bit of a darker shadow there. And I should take a picture of this from a sitting position just so you guys can see. You're like, oh my gosh, that really is a perfectly shaped mug when you're sitting. So I'm adding the cinnamon, and then after the cinnamon, I'm going to add a little bit of the shadow to underneath the saucer, because the saucer right now looks like it's levitating, which would be a cool trick, but in this case would just look wrong. So adding the shadow. Anyways, it is now January, January 8th? I think it's January 8th right now. So how was your New Year's? I think this is the first video I've done since the New Year. Maybe not. No. Is it? I don't remember. I might have had my Valentine one right before. I can check. How was your New Year's? Was it good? Mine was okay. I'm not a New Year's person. I would rather be sleeping on New Year's, but my son gets excited and I think I'd rather be in bed. But anyways, it rained New Year's Day. It rained all day New Year's Day. So this is the blue, and I am working rather quickly because I do want it to blend. I'm using a pretty fat little mop there to get the colors across. I want it to be darker on one side than the other side. I'm doing that on purpose. And because this is super wet, I did go with a super wet because it creates a natural flow of water. A beautiful thing about watercolor is it's easier to paint water because it's watercolor. It's water. So whatever it's naturally doing is very likely going to help you make it look realistic. So I don't know if you could tell in the top right corner, the blue is kind of shifting a little bit, which absolutely can happen with water on a window. So I'm just, it's working, and I like it. So, and as you can see, I went much lighter on one side than I did on the other. You can do all one color, whatever you want. And I'm just, right now, just trying to make sure I get around the cup, get behind the cup, don't miss those gaps. Those are always easy to forget. And I'm doing it quickly because I want to make sure. One of the things is that when you're doing the back of the mug right now, it would be weird if all of a sudden it was super dark behind the handle and then not the right side of the mug. Then you'd be like, oh wait, that doesn't look right. So try to get the same shade all the way around. Right now, one of the little hairs off my brush fell, so I'm trying to lift it up. And then filling it up until the table line. And then I'm going to go through and here's that part where I was talking about behind the handle. I just want to make sure it's the same shade of blue so it doesn't look weird. I don't know why this suddenly just made me think of this movie we watched last night. We watched this movie called The Menu. And it's with Anya. Oh, I forgot her last name, but she played in the Queen. Is it the Queen's Gambit? Wow, I'm not being very helpful. The chess movie. It was a really good movie. But she's in it. And Ralph Fiennes, isn't it? He's really good. Did you know that he's a Shakespearean actor? I know. I think of him as Hannibal, which is... and he's played things like The English Patient, like such great roles. And I'm like, oh, Hannibal. But anyways, we watched that movie. And for some reason, that's making me think of this movie that we watched. It was such a trippy movie. I liked it. It was very avant-garde. It's psychological thriller, maybe psychological comedy, dark comedy. I liked it. I thought it was great. It's totally up my alley, but it is a weird movie. It's trippy. So I think people are either going to hate it or love it. So anyways, I'm putting blue streaks in the window right now for the rain on purpose. So I'm just doing like the darker streaks throughout. It's kind of hard to explain. Like I'll throw in, how about this? How about I throw in a picture of a rainy window so I can show you what exactly I'm talking about. So I'll pop that in right now, and that way you guys can see what I'm talking about with the streaks and stuff and the water and the rain. I think it'll make a little bit more sense, and I'm not trying to go for precision here. I'm going more for a loose watercolor effect. And then once I add the dark blues and the streaks, I don't know, can you kind of see it yet? Is it coming together a little bit yet? So I'm putting the darker streaks over the drawing gum. So that's kind of the trick to this. That's what you want to do. Is because you want it to, when you lift up that drawing gum, it's going to be white, and then it's going to help it give that dimensional look, like a water drop, like a water streak. So it's going to be darker on one side. Hopefully that makes sense. I'll post a picture right now so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. But that'll help you with the dimensions. And I'm adding some of the green aqua streaks to also show that as well. And then I'm going to put in a tree on the left side, like it's on the other side of the window. So basically the paper's wet, and I want it to stay wet because I want the tree, when I paint the tree, to be blurry. Because you're looking at it through a rainy window, it's going to automatically look distorted because you're looking at it through rain. So that's why I keep my paper wet, so it looks, you know, you can see it, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. And then I'm going to wait until it dries just a little bit, and then put a little bit of blue on top of it so you can see that it's actually behind the window. And I don't know if you can tell how the green leaves are spreading. You can't really see the definition of the leaves yet. Some are a little bit more defined than others, and that's basically it. It's because you're looking at it through rain, which is blurry. And now I'm adding the branch, and the branch is going to be also distorted, but you can see it's a branch, but you don't want it to be like, oh, defined branch. So it looks like it's through a rainy window. And it's easy to do because your paper's wet. So like if you were doing this in acrylic or oil, you would actually have to paint it to look like it's through blurry rain. But because you've actually got the benefit of using watercolor, you can just use the benefit of water being there to distort it. And then I'm going to let that dry and then add a little bit more of the blues around it. And then we are going to do what is my favorite part, which is lifting up the drawing gum on, because it is oddly gratifying, and I can't explain why. But here I'm adding a couple more dark blue streaks as the paper is dried a bit. It's still a little wet, so it's still going to bleed, but it's not going to bleed as much. And I'm specifically going around the curly sides of the drawing gum so that you can see that definition when you pull that drawing gum up. Sorry, I had to take a sip of water. I don't usually do videos this long, but the water series, I think they're all going to be about this length because they do take layers upon layers of paint to get it to where you want it to be. So you guys might be starting to see how it's coming together now with the drops. You know, that streaks coming down, the rain. I know I was little, my parents were driving and it was raining. Actually my mom never drove in the rain. And I've watched the water drops come down the window, and I just enjoy seeing it travel. So just speeding up a little bit through here. And now I'm doing the crease in the book. No, I'm not. I lied. I'm doing the side of the book. It's the right side of the book, like the pages, and doing the little lines. I'm speeding through this a bit, so I'm not actually drawing the lines as fast as it looks. It's just trying to darken that side of the book. Presumably the cover of the book is black. And then I'm adding the pages, and I'm going to put a little bit more shadowing in the crease of the book to give it a little bit more definition here, and also because I want to add the lettering to the book. So with the lettering, you can definitely obviously write real words if you want. It will take a very long time, so if you want to put in that amount of work, I think it would be super impressive. I did not have the patience for it. If you do, by all means, go ahead. Please tag me in it because I think that would look fantastic. But I did the traditional cartoonish, just scribble lines. And now I'm adding that shadow beneath the mug that I told you about to help make it look like it's not levitating anymore. You know, good idea, Tina. No levitating mugs. I think I kind of noticed this in the very end, like, oh, need a shadow there. And I do kind of blur it a bit over the book part because it is kind of a little bit over the book, so I just wanted to make it look realistic. And then I'm going to add the lettering, and you just keep adding the shadowing until you get to the darkness that you want. This is a little bit too dark, but I do lighten it a bit, and then I'm going to add the lettering. But now it really looks like you can see kind of getting dimension now, right? And we didn't even lift up the drawing gun yet. My computer is yelling at me right now because I'm running low on battery, but I think I'll make it. I only have like 4 minutes left, so I think I'll power through. And then once I add the lettering, I think I'll just add a few more details to it, and that'll be it. So this is pretty much it. We're gonna wrap it up. I'll let you watch the rest of the video. But do me a favor, if you do give this painting a try, please let me know how it goes for you. This is definitely on the, I would call this the medium level. If you're going like beginner, medium, advanced, I would say this is more on the medium, maybe almost into advanced. Probably just because there's so much blending and technique and water. It's just more extensive, I would say. I think anytime you have to do blending or use a drawing gun, I'm going to call it probably a medium level because there's more tools as well. But look how good that saucer looks. If only the mug was perfectly shaped like I thought it was. But anyways, take it, like I said, enjoy the rest of the painting. You're probably sick of hearing my voice by now. But let me know how it goes. And if you want me to do a specific video, leave it in the comments. Any kind of tutorials, any help, let me know. But otherwise, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe or share it with anybody you think might be interested.